Hello, welcome to Video Mania 2. I'm the man behind the counter, Duncan, and today we're going to talk about an early 90s movie that I think often gets overlooked, and the title of it has been overshadowed by a movie that was released 8 years later with the same title. A lot of people think of that, and you'll know what I'm talking about in a minute. I'm going to talk about Gladiator, starring Cuba Gooding Jr. and James Marshall. And it's obviously not to be confused with the Gladiator from the year 2000 with Russell Crowe. This movie is kind of a coming-of-age story based around some illegal underground boxing. James Marshall plays Tommy Riley, Cuba Gooding Jr. plays Lincoln. And it also has a great supporting cast here, too. It's Cara Buono from Stranger Things. You got Brian Dennehy, Robert Loggia, John Cena, Ossie Davis, and John Hurd. It's directed by Rowdy Harrington, who did, of course, Roadhouse. And the story's by Robert Mark Kamen, who kind of does these coming-of-age stories. Obviously, he had a hand in the Karate Kid, so here's that. And the music's by Brad Fiedel, who did the first two Terminator movies. And you can hear some similar tones here, and I always liked his work. And it's evident here, too, it really works for this movie. Now, the plot here, Tommy Riley, James Marshall's character, he's had a kid who's had a few bad breaks. He lost his mother, and his dad drank and racked up gambling debts to try to pay her medical bill. So they're in a bad part of Chicago, and things aren't really going too well. So he's in a new school, and the movie starts out, he walks to the new school, and some of the kids there don't take too well to him, and he's the strong, silent type. He doesn't really say much. He doesn't want any trouble. He's actually very smart, and he just wants to go to school and try to make the best of it here. And so he does that, and he meets a girl in the class, Dawn, played by Cara Buono, and he runs into her at a diner, and he starts washing dishes there. And he comes from a nicer part of Chicago, and everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" So, and he's like, "Well, it happens." And his dad has sobered up and has got a good job, but he has to leave for a month to get on the road. He's in sales, and things are looking up for him, but he has to hold down the fort, and also the loan sharks are on his dad, and they come by to visit Tommy, and they show him, like, "Here's what your dad owes us, it's $1,250. So one night at the diner, while he's washing dishes, he's taking out the trash, taking a little break, and some of the kids that didn't take too kindly on him when they first saw him at school, they picked on him a little bit, and they pushed him too far. He said, "I don't want any trouble, I got no quarrel with you guys," but they insisted. And it turns out he could fight. He started fighting back, and they're like, "Okay, this kid's not going to be pushed around." And Pappy Jack, Robert Loggia's character, he helps kind of scout the local talent for these underground fights. He sees him fight, and he's like, "Come on over here, kid. Let me talk to you. You can fight. You ever fought before?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did." Tommy's like, "I did some Golden Gloves fights." So he was like, "When we fight," he's like, "I'll give you some really good money." He's like, I need $1,250. And he's like, "Okay, you drive a hard bargain, but okay, you're gonna fight a guy named Black Death." And he was a huge underdog, and they put him in these underground fights, and they run this little arena called Smokers. That's what they're called, where they had amateur fights. Of course, these were illegal, and they had pretty small boxing gloves. And these fights were run by a promoter named Horn, Brian Dennehy's character, who does a great job here. The acting all around is really good, but Brian Dennehy really shines in this role. And so he sets up the fight, and he beats Black Death. So, Horn's like, "You're the kid I've been looking for. Why don't you fight for me? You can make some real money. Let's talk about your future, because you really got one in this fight game." And he's like, "No, I just want the money you owe me, and I'll be on my way. He basically wants to focus on school and try to make the best of his situation. But he knows these fights are probably not the best, and Horn doesn't have the fighter's best interest at heart, really. He's a scumbag, as he puts it, and everybody kind of knows it. So he does that, but then he pays some of the loan shark guys, and Pappy Jack sees him, and he calls the local loan shark, and he's like, "I see a couple of your collectors here," and Tommy's paying him some money. And so Pappy Jack tells Horn about it, and Horn's like, "Well, I need to get Tommy back in these fights, so I'm going to buy his dad's debts to the loan shark." So he bought him off, so now he's like, "Now you owe me, and you're going to fight for me." So he's kind of trapped, and his dad's off making sales, and he's doing better. So he needs to do this to help hold down the fort, but he really wants to just go to school. So he starts fighting, but he also, because of this bad situation, he's in Newtown. He does meet a guy named Armando Asadro, played by John Cena, um, and he meets his girlfriend, Dawn. So they start to have a relationship, and he forms a relationship with a friendship with Lincoln, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character. So they become close. So they're all kind of becoming friends here, and he's making the best of the situation. And James Marshall, what he really conveys is he starts out kind of depressed and the strong silent type, but he does get more animated and he talks more as he starts to meet some people, and he's learning to adapt here. So that's kind of the coming of age part. But it eventually things, because loyalty's tested and he has to make some decisions, and some of the other characters have to make decisions. Does he want to keep working for Horn, because Horn is not a good guy? So it all really works, and the music here is really good, like I said, and the soundtrack is really eclectic. I really liked it. Like, you have some R&B and rock, and it's all put together really nicely. It's blended seamlessly, so it really works. So I like that. Like, you have like Seal, who was an R&B singer in the '90s, and you have the rock band Warrant. You have a lot of different stuff here, so it's really good. So this movie doesn't get its due sometimes. I think it's really good, and it's free to stream on Tubi. So check it out if you're interested, and leave a comment below if you've seen it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like older movies, ones that have kind of been overlooked over the years. Give Video Mania 2 a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. That's all I have for today, and I'll see you next time.